The image only captures part of it. It's this elemental life, out in the wilds every day in every weather, only the scant companionship of horses, cows, and a few humans. It's so unlike most of our lives today.
I ride no blue roan, I carry all I own in the pouches of my saddlebags, with my bedroll tied behind.
I love cowboy songs. To me, they capture this life so completely. But I've always wondered why, amongst all the jobs a person can have, these guys still breathe life into their musical inheritance. And if you think the cowboy and his music are just a relic of bygone days, just stick around.
Why the Cowboy Sings was made possible in part through the generosity of the George S. and Dolores Doré Eccles Foundation, the R. Harold Burton Foundation, and the Dick Burton Foundation.
Get along, little pony, get along, get along, get along, little pony, get along. Gotta meet my gal in old Cheyenne tonight.
So, what made cowboys sing in the first place? Maybe the experts will know.
They were starved for entertainment, and so they told stories, and the stories became poems, and the poems became songs, and it was a way of avoiding boredom.
Sounds a little lonely out there just singing to yourself.
I got a chance to sing to a herd of cattle one day when I was herding cattle on a big ranch up in western Wyoming, and they just stopped drinking and stopped chewing their cud. They just looked at me. And they were so fascinated, they thought I was Dean Martin. Oh, say, little doggies, why don't you lay down?
Oh boy, if anyone will know, it's Waddie.
So Waddie, why does the cowboy sing?
Why does a frog croak?
I think it's time to hit the trail. The wide open's always a good place to look for answers, and it's a fine time, middle of the winter, when things slow down on a ranch.
I'm hitting the trail tonight, I'm hitting the trail tonight. My horse is pulling the bridle reins, I'm hitting the trail tonight.
I think I'll go visit Glenn Orland.
Well, I've been busting broncos.
He's a true blue old-time cowboy who doesn't fall for all this cowboy hoopla.
I don't like too much mystique to everything because it isn't really necessary.
Then I think I'll go see Stephanie Davis. A few years ago, she wrote a hit song for Garth Brooks. Then she quit Nashville and came back to Montana ranching country.
I moved back home here and walked the hills. I just walked. My neighbors thought I was so strange, but that's what I needed to do, is let the wind wash me clean.
Driving down Wind River.
How about a visit to an Indian cowboy, Henry Reelbird? Yeah, you heard me right, an Indian cowboy.
My grandpa used to always say that the cowboy is as close to being an Indian as you can ever be.
But first I think I'll go visit Larry Schutte. He and his wife Tony and their kids John and Riata ranch out in a big open valley near Oasis, Nevada. Though they live 50 miles away from our little ranch, they're considered neighbors out here.
Praise the Lord. What a beautiful day. The fellowship around this table and your hand upon the work. No harm or injury to anybody. Lift up in Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Get your horse for mother.
The Schutte's days are filled with an ancient rhythm of seasons and husbandry. They warm up the horses instead of warming up a car's engine before going to work.
In there, that was soft.
These roads going into the cattle guard are kind of soft, but you can get through it.
She can't make it back to the good road.
She might.
Larry and I like swapping tunes. In 1985, we started what has become the National Cowboy Poetry Gathering, and it really spurred on a whole grassroots arts movement in the West. In the beginning, Larry was one of the main guys, but as the whole thing became popular, a lot of the talented cowboys began traveling and performing. But from the very first, Larry turned down most invitations, and I've always wondered why.
Well, I'm doing what I want to do, but I wanted to stay with my family.
That was mainly it?
That's it. The rest of it can fly. I wanted to raise kids. I wanted to be with that woman.
Yeah.
And we're doing what we want to do here. Just blessed to have a little piece of country. Do what we want to do. We don't make no money, but here we are sitting enjoying the sun. Everybody else had to get up and go to work.
Yeah.
$10 an hour. I'm happy with $3 an hour. Get them around the point here and then look. There was 3 or 4 head went off of this. Well, you're late.
It's because you're yakking.
Well,
ride no band, lead no paint.
Long hard journey to the Americas, 1493. I was afraid I would die of thirst. The little mare beside me died, was put into the sea. I survived, swam ashore, I'm la premiere.
A horse will teach you preservation. They are the most incredible animal Lord made because they're so forgiving. You learn something from every one of them.
16 of us, sorrow's black sand bay. One of them was my firstborn, he was called Coyote. He survived and conquered all Mexico. I am a drinker of the wind, I am the one who never tires. I love my freedom more than all these things. Conquistador Campeche, the cowboy carried them to glory. La Primera, Spanish Mustang, hear my story.
Cut out any misses, yeah.
High in the Prairie Mountains, first light of dawn.
Maybe I'll start doing the hula hand.
Coyote walks beneath.
Isn't that hula hand?
Yeah, nail him.
Oh!
It's amazing the man can even feed himself.
Larry!
Yeah. Oh, keep him on the table.
Okay.
Keep him on the table.
Okay. Okay. Hey! Yes! The Shooties have always worked on remote ranches far from school and town. When the kids were young, Tony had a choice to make.
I was terrible in school. And I remember when I went to the school board and told them that I was going to teach kids at home, and they said, well, you know, Tony, that's not a really good idea. But I thought, you know, if the Lord wants this family to stay together, then he's going to help me, and he did. I remember the first day John was reading the old McGuffey readers. Mm-hmm. He was sitting at the kitchen table and read the first page, and his face just lit up, and he tore out of the house, went running down the hill, Dad, Dad, I can read, I can read. And I thought, you know, if they'd have been in town, I'd have missed all that.
The years passed on and far from home, the skies just weren't so blue. I miss the sage and I miss the...
Riata and John, both in their mid-20s, remind me a lot of their folks when I first knew them. Riata, like her dad, has a passion for singing and even performed solo at the gathering last year.
This city life just ain't for me. It's where my heart will never be. So
Tony is an artist and passed that skill on to John. Though he'd rather be thought of as a roper and a cowboy, art has always come naturally to him.
He was like 3 years old, and he was drawn in, and he just, it's like he has a photostatic memory. He can just, you know, he's out there working all the time, and he comes in and he'll just, and he's got it done, and it's just pretty amazing.
Nevada, you're always on my mind.
The Shooties are an inspiration to me. The way they live with each other and the way they live on the land. But for them, inspiration resides somewhere else.
It's just awesome. And I mean, I take this all in and I think, God, what a blessing. And it's like, don't let me take it for granted. Don't let me miss a moment of it.
I can do nothing on my own. Unless the Lord is in control of all things, which everything's His anyway. You're just here being the steward, so you've got to take care of what there is. If you want to be a sluggard and stay in the house, then you don't deserve it, and it'll get taken away from you. But He has blessed us. Every day you ask for just the guidance on how to go about it. What do I need to go check? And it's always there. He's always being the big patron. That's all we've got.
This has been a time of big changes for Riata. When I first visited, she was working for her folks at the ranch. Within a year, she moved to town, bought a house, and started a massage therapy practice. Though she doesn't know it here at church, she's about to get married and move back to a ranch. Jake Brown is the cow boss on one of the big outfits north of Elko called the Spanish Ranch.
So, Jake, when did you look at Riata and say, hey, that might be someone to hang out with?
Oh, I don't know. It was probably, 4 or 5 years ago. But I thought, she's out of my league, and so I never even tried. I just, hey, how are you? And leave it at that, so.
Things move slow sometimes.
It's all right. It's been perfect timing, so.
Yeah. Do you think you could, have you ever dated city kids?
Mm-hmm.
What's it like?
Awful. They don't have any idea how to relate to us. Or I don't know, for me anyway, they thought, oh yeah, I can wear the pants and I can wear the boots, and it's like, that's not where it's at. You have no clue how I was raised. It's so much more than the looks.
What do you want your kids to take from that you've got in your life?
Growing up on the ranch, definitely. That's one thing I would never give up for them. I would hope not anyway. And music.
When did music sort of ring a bell with you?
My dad, when I was very young, because he'd always play for my mom. I remember him singing love songs to her when we were about 2 and 3 and 4, and he'd sing to us. It's my dad.
Huh. He sang love songs to your mom all the time. Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's really romantic.
Yeah. Oh, Dad's a romantic. He is. Yep. All the songs and flowers. He'd get her wildflowers.
Really?
Yeah. The side of Dad you never knew.
Oh.
Nighttime in Nevada, I'm dreaming the old days, the desert and you. And I miss you when the campfires are gleaming and I wonder you miss me too. And I can see the great divide, the trails we used to ride, the only bit of heaven I knew. Wait, it's night time in Nevada, I'm dreaming of the old days, the desert and you. I've been drifting since we've roamed the ranges, up to Roman when you went away, with a love for you that never changes. I hope that we will meet again someday. Wait, it's night time in Nevada, I'm dreaming of the old days, the desert and you. And I miss you when the campfires are gleaming, and I wonder, do you miss me too? And I can see the great divide, trails we used to ride, the only bit of heaven I knew. Wait, it's night time in Nevada.
The Schutte family's love for each other, for the land and animals, and for their God, it overflows. Their songs are a reservoir of love. Well, I've decided to head east, across the country, to visit a true blue old-time cowboy named Glen Orland.
This is all about a trip up the trail, take you clean to Kansas.
Glen is revered everywhere as the man who knows the cowboy songs of the trail drives of the 1800s.
The ladies all adore him with his $8 pants.
It's a long journey, and it seems a little odd driving to the Ozarks of Arkansas to find the heart of cowboy tradition. But Glen came here over 40 years ago when a guy could still get into good grazing country for $4 an acre.
Glenn.
Hey, Hal.
How are you doing? It's good to see you.
See you, finally met you. You get lost coming up here?
No, but we went and got some boots.
Oh, good. Boy, you sure need them now. It's like a... Come on in.
Okie doke.
I think I need a better coat than this.
God, what a great place.
It sort of looks like an old western hacienda. I've known Glen since the 70s and bought his first record when I was in high school.
Yeah, that's me there. I was about 4, I suppose. I was born in 26 and this is 30.
Yeah.
But I was taking a guess at this date, so.
Uh-huh. And is that you riding there?
Yeah, yeah, that's in 1950.
Looks like you're on top of the world there.
Yeah, right. I rode tried out 9 horses that day. That's where I broke my back in Tucson in 48.
That's the picture of you going off?
Yeah, I had the wildest...
That's you right there?
That's my head, body, and feet. I had the wildest spurring lick in the world at that time, throwing my feet way over my head and dropping my spurs in the top of their neck. And he was just too strong. He took the rigging away from me. I got a compression fracture, wore a cast for 3 months.
Glen remembers every scene from his personal Wild West with incredible clarity. His rodeo days seem to resonate even more than the time he was honored by the president for his contribution to American folk art. Though he hasn't rodeoed in years, he still travels all over the country singing, and our cowboy poetry gathering wouldn't be the same without him.
Well, Mr. Boomer Johnson was a-getting old in spots. You don't expect a bad man to go wrestling pans and pots. Boomer done his share of killing, but his draw was getting slow. He quits a punching cattle and he goes to punching dough. Well, the foreman up and hired him, thought the years had rode him tame. But a snake don't get no sweeter by the changing of his name. But say, Boomer knew his business. He could cook to make you smile. But he rustled up the fodder in a most peculiar style.
Glenn used to just sing for himself or his rodeo buddies until a folklorist named Archie Green came around in the early 60s and invited him to come to a college campus folk festival.
Archie was backstage and he says, "Are you nervous?" I said, "No." And he says, "Why aren't you nervous?" I says, "I don't think that chair is going to buck me off. What about the crowd? Well, they may like it or they may not, but I'll get paid anyway." So. It's way the easiest form of cowboy and I know anything about. He drilled a hole plumb center every time his pistol spoke, till the can was full of doughnuts and the shack was full of smoke. Now killing folks and cooking ain't so very far apart. I reckon that's why Boomer kept a practice in his heart. With the front side of his pistol he could cut a pilot slick. He rolled it with the barrel just to make the edges stick. But somehow Boomer Johnson couldn't seem to understand why his shooting made us nervous when his cooking was so grand. But he kept right on performing and it came as no surprise. He took to marking tombstones on the covers of his pies.
At 75, the satisfaction of a self-dependent life keeps Glenn going way past the age when most people hang it up and retire.
And I says, "Well, thank you, no. All I take this trip is coffee 'cause my stomach gets a wreck. I could see the urge for killing swell the veins along his neck. Scoring his grub, he strung some donuts on the barrel of his gun."
Glenn, what's your cattle called?
Cattle. That's what they are, so that's what I call them. Had people come out here wanted to look at the cattle, and I say they understand English. And I'd say, "Would you cattle please come over here?" They'd all come over. A row of smiling faces and another cook to hire. He's working in some other world, and cooking is what I mean. It's where they ain't got matches and they don't need kerosene.
Every song brings back memories of the cowboys and old-timers who taught him the life and the music.
Ollie Gilbert, she's long dead now, she had 1,000 songs written down on a narrow strip of paper like you type up grocery prices on, you know, on the old-fashioned deal. And she had 1,000 songs on that. And then she had another strip of paper with 1,000 dirty jokes on it.
She knew 1,000 songs and 1,000
She sure did.
jokes.
You'd pick one out. How's this one go?
So why do you think cowboys have music and other groups don't?
Well, I suppose isolation, you know. Gee, I've spent a lot of time here just picking the guitar and learning songs and stuff.
How much time are you alone?
Most of the time, unless I go to town for coffee and stuff like that. Once in a while I hear some philosopher telling on the tube what you ought to do to, you know, to get along with yourself. Usually I recognize what they're talking about because I've always done it, you know. And one of the things you do, if you live alone, if you're not too damn far from people, just go where they are and visit for an hour or a half hour or something like that, and then come home.
I never knew that I could hurt this way.
So you've been here 46 years.
Yeah.
To some people, do you think you're still a newcomer?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Sure.
Do you feel like you're an outsider here?
No, I don't feel like an outsider, but I'll never be exactly like, you know, some folks here, I don't guess.
Yeah.
Never really intended to. I kind of hung on to what I brought with me, so.
Yeah. I mean, this house is very different than any other house in the neighborhood. Every time I look around, I see a painted beam or a carved door. I mean, it's artistic.
Yeah, And there's a few people here that are. There's some people that really paint nice pictures and things, but the whole lifestyle is, I think, right here, the least artistic of any I've ever come across in everyday things, you know. I think it might be something to do with a general religious idea here, that you don't enjoy things too much. You're supposed to kind of suffer. I know a lady up the road here just drank sour milk so she wouldn't enjoy it too much. That's kind of pushing it, I think. You know? And I'm just total opposite of that. So.
All day in the saddle on the prairie I ride. Not even a dog boys to trot by my side. My fire I must kindle from chips gathered round. I boil my own coffee without being ground. My books are the brooks and my sermons the stones. My parson's a wolf on his pulpit of bone. My roof is the sky and my floor is the grass. My music's the lowing of herds as they pass. But society brands me so savage and dog that the Masons would bar me out of their law. If I'd hair on my chin.
Glenn knows solitude, but he's not lonely. I guess that's part of the pioneer spirit, striking out on your own, alone. That's Glenn Orland's song.
And my parson remarks from his pulpit of bones, fortune favors those who look out for their own.
Cowboy spirit and spirituality take on many forms. I'm headed to see Crow Indian Henry Reelbird up at his ranch in the Wolf Teeth Mountains of Montana.
When you're in the fog, they say that you're close to the Maker. I always think of it as being blessed.
Henry Reelbird and I were born the same summer, but in two different worlds.
I'm from the Wolf Teeth Mountains, no one to call my own, so I come here looking for you, Hunter. Wait, oh, hey, yo. Wait, oh, hey, yo. Wait, oh, hey, yo. Wait, Hunter. My grandpa taught me how to ride like that. Took me out there when I was young and just flat ride him and close your eyes, and then he'd whip that thing and he'd just go jump over the sagebrush and everything else, and he'd just ride him like that, and then going, oh, my grandpa, you'd always say that the cowboy is as close to being an Indian as you can ever be.
I used to think that cowboys and Indians were mortal enemies. That was before Henry showed up at the Cowboy Poetry gathering. I found that, like cowboys, Indians raise cows to avoid punching a time clock. And of course, there's that shared love of horses.
You always want to belong somewhere, and me, I've never really thought of anything else. I mean, I just belong on a horse, And I've never wanted any other way of life. Just hang around the horse and no pressures. So that's what it's all about. Oh, any questions? Good morning, Little Bighorn College, Real Bird speaking. How may I help you? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes, I do have a question. What's Henry doing in town working with kids of the local community college?
The paper is freedom. The paper is freedom. This is what writing is all about. To me, you don't have to be afraid of anything. On that paper, that's your paper. You can have anger in there if you want. And you can have beautiful feelings in there if you want. And you can have joy. And you can have happiness. And you can have peace. You can have whatever you want there. And
it's almost like a wild bronc ride, following Henry's poetic thought process as he takes students along for the ride.
I was at the racetrack, and they had me down as a trainer. And this old man, Jimmy Dorr, he's one of my clan uncles, and he come over and, Jimmy, Jimmy, what are you doing? Usually you don't come to the racetrack. I said, and he said, yeah. Driftwood, I am like my heart's way I can't do. I'm catching a ride. That's what he said. And so at that time, I liked it so much. I gave him $5, even though I could have bought drinks with it. I gave him the $5 and asked him if I can use those words. Hey, got an idea, baby? Yeah. Okay. And he said, yeah, I give you those words. I give you those words and still ask for good thoughts for you. So I thought about that driftwood. In life, I've been floating all over the place, and man, I'm not really into it sometimes. And then it just sets me down here, and then picks me up and takes me around. How much longer do you want to be in the wind? Elk River's edge, there I'm standing, looking for a feeling in the wind, feeling got to roam. So I come down river to look around, feeling got to roam. So I reach in the roar of the water for a feeling in the wind. Driftwood feeling, floating down Love River, heart's way can't do. I'm catching a ride, floating down Love River. Driftwood feeling, floating down Love River, heart's way can't do. I'm catching a ride, floating down Love River. Somewhere between the reflection and the stars is the feeling of life and love, where you can hear the stars in the wind. Feeling twinkling and fluttering in cottonwood leaves, just a feeling in the wind from yesterday and days gone by. Can I have tomorrow from yesterday that I borrow? Driftwood feeling, floating down Love River, heart's way can't do. I'm catching a ride, floating down Love River. Driftwood feeling, floating down Love River, heart's way can't do. I'm catching a ride, floating down Love River. Driving down Wind River, I'm rodeo bound, tough road to hoe, with the Lone Star woman in my mind. Back in time when she was mine, she talked of love. Whatever you like, just like if you like to see skyscrapers and listen to the Dow Jones report, I mean, that's what you get. And so out here we like to see the sun come out between the trees and the sky, and like to see the sun set between the trees and the sky again. And that's what it's all about. A Lone Star woman whispered love, took it away for the dawn. A Lone Star woman in my mind, a Lone Star woman back in time. Whippy-tidy-idy, oh, hey-yo, whippy-tidy-idy, oh, hey-yo.
So, tell us where we are.
You're on the west bank of the Little Bighorn.
Right here.
That's the Little Bighorn right there, yeah. And that's Medicine Tail Coulee on up there. And then Custer come down the flat here, try to cross the river here. And then the story is he went down, and the rest of his men were chased on up to Custer Hill there.
I'm honored to be invited to the Real Bird Sweat Lodge. A sweat lodge is an outdoor sauna full of prayer and observance. Sort of like a Crow Indian song. I can appreciate it, but I'll never know the depth of tradition I'm being led into.
Today, my little brother, we're going to bring one of our clan uncles in and have him pray today, and that's what we're working on. We, therapy in a way, we're free to talk any way we want, and it stays here.
Yeah.
And so we laugh, and the men, we pray and everything, but we laugh and just forget about the problems of the world for a while. And that's the fire that we have here, and we welcome everybody. Yeah. We've got to get some water here.
Okay.
There you go. Just set it along the fire there and make sure the handle's on the outside.
Right.
Henry lives the rituals that have been handed down from his ancestors. But he doesn't stop there. He uses poetry to explore back to a time before there were even words.
I wanted to go as far back into time as I can, and then to describe it, and then to come back. And so then, at one time, a long time ago, when silence was not a word, there was nothing but air that's black and all shadow of the dark night. When silence was, and not a word, there was nothing but air that's black in all shadow, the dark night. And then it was Old Man Coyote that came out and howled, and then going on like that. But on that one there, when I'll never forget that. It must have been about 2 in the morning. I thought, that at one time, a long time ago, was easy. But when silence was, and not a word. So I got in the car and went over to this friend of mine, and I woke him up, and he let me in and told him, Dwayne, I got it. This is it. I mean, I went as far back as I can now. And he said it was. I mean, beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, you got it. He'd say. And so I do that. And so I mean, I just go out and search for thoughts and rhymes and just move around like that.
Henry Reelbird's entire life, every word is a poem and a prayer. He's a cowboy Indian, but deep down he sings the song of the food gatherer. Henry tells me about his ancestors and their ceremonies to entice entire herds of buffalo to the cliff's edge. It's almost as though he were there.
And I can still hear the thundering of the hooves and trembling through me, and I am one with my Mother Earth. My heart beats one with my Mother Earth. From the many hoofbeats, as the buffalo shoot out of the horizon to ricochet off the fences of smoke, and the buffalo jump off, and then we bloody the water, and then we put the best of food in our mouth and grease the edges of our mouths. And when our dogs are eating good, we too are eating good. I am a food gatherer. That's who I am.
As I leave Henry's ranch, I realize how ancient and universal the song of the food gatherer is. There's so many easy answers to why the cowboy sings, like cowboys have too much time on their hands, or they're tricked into singing by the rhythm of their horse's canter. Maybe they hear too many coyotes howling at the moon. Now I'm off to make my final visit to a songwriter named Stephanie Davis. She moved back to Montana a half-dozen years ago after a stint in the country music fast lane of Nashville.
When shadows creep across the hills and purple streaks the sky, when cattle bunch up closer for the night, that's when you'll hear the whippoorwill start singing sweet and high. That's when you hear
everybody has the feeling of being home when they're where they belong, even if it's not necessarily where they were born. And the minute I drove up the road here, it's a funny thing, I had my dad and half my family looking for a little place for me. And I told them what I was looking for, and one day my dad called me and he said, "I found your place." And I got on the plane, I came out to see, it was in my price range and everything. Crossed the cattle guard and I knew that was my place immediately. I said, "I'll take it." It felt great. And it still has that feeling. I'll come back from a trip or something and I'm home.
So you're a writer. A lot of people think manure.
It's the smell of home for me. It's the smell of when they cut the hay, the different seasons mean different chores. The whole life is tied in with the weather. When you live in a city or so far removed from the land, I found that it robbed my soul. I was disoriented.
It's the prairie lullaby. Oh, the breeze.
I'm writing stuff like I've never written, a whole new style of writing, it's like I'm more just writing down what I'm hearing instead of sitting there trying to make something out of nothing.
Then she smiles and turns her face up toward the morning sky for home. There's a crocus in the snow, 'cause it's been 6 hard months today.
I think I was born rhyming words. I remember early, 3, 4 years old, I opened the refrigerator door and was rhyming all the vegetables that I could see. I was just rhyming all the time. I don't know where it came from. Probably drove my family crazy. And grew up about 30 miles from here, and my grandparents homesteaded just over the hill here, and they had a beautiful ranch, and the sheep market bottomed out in the 40s, I guess it was, and they had to sell it for a pittance. I suppose a lot of families that lose their places and move off of them have that feeling of being displaced.
So fly you wild birds back and sing.
So is, coming back here reclaiming that in a way?
It's the most beautiful, ironic fairy tale for me. When I was 5 years old, I told my parents, I said, I'm going to live on a ranch and I'm going to play music. And of course they laughed, they thought that was funny. And I did too. I never saw how it could possibly actually happen. I sure didn't think you could make a living at it. It just was something I had to do. And I remember I told people, well, I'm going to move to Nashville and be a songwriter. And people said, you're crazy, don't do it, it's impossible, forget it, including my own family. They said, what, have you lost your mind completely? And I had probably $200-300 to my name. Just moved there, didn't know a soul, had nothing, no idea, just had a few terrible songs.
Stephanie was a starving songwriter for years before talent and gambler's luck finally paid off. No one was more surprised than she was when success hit.
I got my first check and I took it to the bank and I tried to deposit it in the automatic deposit and it rejected it because I had only had about $9 in my account ever since, so they thought it was some fraud. And I had to go into the bank and prove that that was actually a legitimate income.
What song was that?
That was from Wolves, the song that I wrote that Garth Brooks recorded.
January's always bitter, but Lord, this one beats all. The wind ain't quit for weeks now. The drifts are 10 feet tall. I've been all night driving heifer closer in to lower ground. morning thinking about the ones the wolves pulled down. Charlie Barton and his family stopped today to say goodbye. He said the bank was taken over. The last few years was just too dry.
It's a song about a guy losing his ranch, and I never thought anyone would be interested in it Nashville-wise. I just kind of wrote it for myself, and it was the kind of the farm crisis of the 80s were going on back here, and that was on my mind. And
Wolves is a lightly veiled story Stephanie's family knew all too well. Sometimes you can't write by the formula. It has to be mainlined from the heart.
the nature of Nashville is that it's kind of a factory of music. It's an assembly line, and I signed on to work at a publishing company as a staff writer. And that means it's a big machine that needs to be fed. I was a cog in the wheel writing songs allegedly for other people. And the little voice in me kept saying, Stephanie, this isn't right, this doesn't feel good. But I would still make it go into that cubicle and write a song for so-and-so who needed one, and I needed the money, and you know, I would try to write something, and they weren't even that good. I just didn't feel good about what I was doing. And when I moved back here, I was so burnt out, I didn't have anything to say. I couldn't hardly make myself look at my guitar.
Lord, keep me from being the one the wolves pulled.
Tell me about your neighborhood.
This is a wonderful place to live. It's a bunch of Finnish and Norwegian immigrants, a lot of fourth-generation Montana farmers and ranchers, and those are my favorite people on this earth. They are quiet, humble people who would do anything for you, whether they know you or not. Geez, a hailstorm can come through, and in 20 minutes their entire wheat crop is finished, and they'll just shrug and say, well, next year. Well, you'll meet them. We'll go play a concert and you'll see what I mean. They're just the salt of the earth.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this food, and let us have a good time tonight and enjoy each other's company. We ask this thing in Jesus' name. Amen. Eat. All right.
Thanks, everybody, for coming. Here's a song. It's a new one. A lot of you don't know that I'm trolling for song ideas when I talk to you guys. So here's one. I asked several people, Slim and Joy there, and Mark and Sue. I said, now, what is it about Montana? What do you like living here? It's funny. They all said the same thing. They said, I don't know. So I made a song about it, and here it is.
I got nothing against Texas, Lone Star beer and Western swing, and I've always loved Nevada when the desert blooms in spring. New York's known to be exciting, Alabama mannerly, but there's something about Montana makes it where I gotta be.
The feeling of community flickers bright like the candles that line the windowsills of the Whitebird School. Stephanie weaves a spell spun from heartfelt songs, swing tunes, and even some down-to-earth cowboy humor.
Tourists, he said to his packer friend Ted. That's one bunch it's best to let be. But should you get tangled with one, for God's sake, don't ever bring up your stud fee. Think of them as a coiled rattler. Don't be fooled by their manners and class. And when one of them starts into swinging her purse, duck first, and then cover your ass. Thank you. Oh, gosh. I moved back home here, 4 or 5 years ago after just getting beat up by the music business, and I picked that place where I live up there because it's at the end of the road, and I wanted to just hide from the world and lick my wounds, but you guys didn't know that, and you came up with casseroles and taught me how to run the tractor and make pickles and plant gardens, and you didn't know it, but you were really nursing me back to health, and I don't know if I've ever really said thank you to you, so I'm saying thank you to you right now. And we've got one last tune for you, and we really need you to sing on this, as only you Whitebirders can.
Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam, where the deer and the antelope play.
Home on the Range is an anthem of sorts. Most people know it, and it's been the finale to countless nights around the campfire. It's about the Western spirit of hope, living the good life. I have to admit there's lots of reasons cowboys sing. Glenn Orland inherited his song from a line of horsemen going back to the trail drives. But it's not just tradition. There are new songs for the West, grounded in its land and people. We're always rewriting the verses.
Often at night, when the heavens are bright, from the light flickering
I keep
stars.
thinking how Waddie Mitchell answered my question with a question. Why does the frog croak? Maybe it's just that obvious. Cowboys sing because it's natural for them to sing. But that brings up a bigger question. Why don't more of us have a song?
Wait, oh, hey, yo, wait, yo, hey, yo. The Indian was blessed to be a part of the West, and he's likely to stay till eternity falls, where pony transform to a savvy cow horse, and his fires will be on the little bighorn. Wait, oh, hey, yo, wait, yo, hey, yo, wait, oh, hey, yo, wait, yo, hey, yo.
Oh, give us spring rains, grass that waves across the plains, and a fair market price in the fall. A bureaucrat who our permits will renew, and a ban on urban sprawl.
Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play,
where seldom is heard
the scourging word,
And the skies are not cloudy all day. How about another time? Home, home on the range, where the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.